oil executives testified before House lawmakers yesterday, and it was a wild one, rejecting Democrats' accusations that they are to blame for sky-high gasoline prices. Congressman Michael Burgess asking Exxon CEO Darren Woods about the controversy over oil leases. Watch this.
It almost seems like the administration is being disingenuous when they accuse you of not performing on these leases. It is a complex and complicated process precisely because we make it a complex and complicated process. Let me just ask you again, Mr. Woods, do you think Congress could play a role in providing greater clarification of Department of Interior's leasing and permitting procedures to avoid potential litigation?
I think increased clarity, increased certainty, increased predictability, more efficient and effective permitting processes and regulatory processes would benefit the industry significantly.
Joining me right now, the man himself, Texas Congressman Michael Burgess. He is a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, and he is also a physician. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. Maria. Look, we know what sells for the Democrats and what the narrative constantly is. Big money is evil. Big corporations are evil. The rich don't pay their fair share. Walk us through the facts and the narrative here, so that we clearly understand where the fault lies for the price of gasoline today. What are your thoughts?
Well, of course, there was a strong dose of irony yesterday because 5 or 6 weeks ago, these same executives were in front of another committee who was haranguing them because they were producing too much oil. And so yesterday it was, hey, you're driving the price up by not producing enough. So which is it? But the Democrats love to have villains and victims, and that was what yesterday was all about. Strong attempts on the part of Chairman Frank Pallone to vilify the oil executives, saying, oh, you just use your profits for stock buybacks and dividends. I mean, I had a simple question for Mr. Wood of Exxon. Who holds those equities? Do retired teachers in Texas hold those equities? And he said, yes, of course they do. So I'm for the retired teachers in Texas. I want to see their investments do well. I want their retirement fund to remain solvent. So why wouldn't I be okay with them protecting shareholder value?
Well, I mean, do they have an opportunity to increase production and they're not? I mean, look, every time this issue comes up, the Democrats say that there are these 9,000 leases out there and they should go and drill or pump, even though we know what they've been saying for the last year, to do away with fossil fuels, bullying banks to not bank them and fund oil and gas projects. But now it's a different tune when gasoline prices are where they are. But I would like to know the facts in terms of how difficult or easy it is to get production up and running now.
Well, you're exactly right. It's not like we ran out in the Permian Basin. There's still plenty there to pump and export in terms of liquefied natural gas to Europe, who desperately needs it. But you know, right now we've got a problem in the Department of Interior isn't even home. And so it's very, very difficult for them to get their leases on federal lands approved when there's everyone's teleworking in the agency. So I put a bill out there to say, look, no more additional funding from coronavirus packages until you get back to work in your offices, because it just makes it harder for in the inter-office communication to get a permit approved. Not only do they have to compete for the leases, buy the leases. The geology doesn't always work out for that particular lease, but then the permitting process is extremely complicated, which Congress makes complicated and the agencies make complicated. So if we wanted to simplify and help them, that's where we would be putting our focus. But I do need to stress, it's not like we ran out, and that's why the price went up. No, the price went up because they vilified these companies, and then the attack on getting the capital markets to withhold the operating capital from, these are capital intensive exercises that these companies are undertaking. And if you scare off capital, and capital is never courageous, but if you threaten it and scare it, it won't go there. And that creates another layer of complication.
Which is why I keep reporting the fact that months ago, the Blackstone Group came out and said we are no longer going to be funding oil and gasoline projects. I mean, this was a tone coming from the White House, and corporate America is following suit accordingly. U.S. allies are now reportedly planning to tap into their own reserves, releasing nearly 60 million barrels as the Senate moves today to officially ban Russian oil and end normal trade relations with the country. Congressman, is this enough? I mean, we are watching death and destruction every day.
Yeah.
Is this enough with these sanctions? What else is to come from the U.S. to help Ukraine?
Well, the sanctions should have been earlier. There's no question about that, and they could have been more complete. Even to this day, they could be more complete. You're right. Cut the Russians off of the international banking teleworking network because they're not behaving. The other thing is we know how to protect countries from incoming missiles. We've done that in other areas in the past.
Yeah.
Why those assets were not in place last fall when all of their intelligence showed them what was happening on the borders, and at least make it more difficult for someone to bomb another country senseless.
Yeah. Congressman, real quick before you go, you are a medical
Sure.
doctor. Is there anything you want to say about President Biden and what you're seeing on the world stage? You're seeing the same thing that the CCP and Russia and everybody else is seeing. Are there national security concerns? What is your assessment of President Biden the other day at the White House when President Obama visited as well?
Well, of course it's a concern, but I was pretty cross with doctors who tried to diagnose when President Trump was president, try to diagnose from a television appearance. So I try not to do that. But yeah, you're right. Everybody is not classified. Everybody's seeing the same thing. The films or the television interviews and clips are in the public domain. So yes, it is concern. Have we got our best and strongest person as the commander in chief?
Yeah. Congressman, it's good to see you. Michael Burgess, always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks very much for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.